So here we are. We're just reviewing some general ideas, talking about, let's see, what do we have here? Area and perimeter. No big deal. Pretty simple stuff here. Area and perimeter. The big ideas we'll see here is we're either going to make a box or a half box. So it's either going to, this shape that and so pretty much everything's going to be the same size as like some type of rectangle. We just got to figure out what that kind of rectangle looks like. So right now it says find the area of each. Well, when I look at this shape, it's a trapezoid. I notice that because I have two different bases. And whenever that happens, I can split this trapezoid down a line like that, and I'm also going to split it in half kind of like this. What does that do for me? It does a couple things. Well, one, let's see if we can color code some stuff here just so you guys see where things are going. This little section there goes down here, and let's do some red for the other piece, and this little section here is gonna go down here. Okay, so we do that, and what does that get us? Let's make this black line. There we go. So that means that I'm going to have a box that's half as tall. That's why I'm calling it the half box. But it puts those two bases together. So that's 2.9 for this white section there, and then the red section is 1.5. And the height here was 2 to go to the top, but now it's half that. So it's just 1. So the area of any box is just base times height. And right now, our base is 2.9 plus 1.5, which would be 3 plus 1.4, so that's 4.4. And the height is 1. So the area is actually pretty simple. It's just 4.4 because 1 times 4.4 is 4.4. Okay, another half box would be triangles. So half boxes are the trapezoids and the triangles. So if it's a triangle or a trapezoid, then it's going to turn into this half box. Now the half box here would be half as tall, and the height is right there, 7.7. It's going from the base, the bottom here, up to the top. And it's perpendicular. That's how we know that that's the height. So the height of this box is going to be that 7.7 split in half. But the base is still going to be the same. The base is still going to be 7 down here. So that would tell me that these two things are equal. Well, this would be 7.7 divided by 2. Now I have a calculator that I can do that quickly with, but just looking at it, like $7 split two ways would be $3.50, and 70 cents split two ways would be 35 cents. So we put those things together and we'll have 385. So the height would be 3.85 from the top to the bottom. And the base here is 7. So how do I calculate the area for that? It would just be the base, which is 7, times the height, which is 3.85. This height was half of 7.7. That's how we got it. I'm going to leave that calculation for you guys because those are kind of calculator things. Right now we're mostly looking at which pieces do we need. Because notice I didn't use this 12. Why didn't I use the 12? Because it wasn't one of the two perpendicular kind of lengths. It wasn't a base on the bottom or a base on the top or a height that was perpendicular to one of those. It was just extra. It's like a diagonal line in there. If they had asked us something about perimeter, maybe we could have used it, but for just calculating area, that would not be in there. All right, 6.8, 6.855. This is a simple box. It's just base times height. 5 times 6.8. So what would that be? That's going to be 4 plus 30, so that's going to be 34. If you do that in the calculator, should be. All right, so this one, there's no half height. It's just a straightforward box, the whole thing. Okay, this one, again, we got this half height. So we're going to have like a really wide, narrow, or wide and short. So we got 6 along the base here. And this over here is 1.9 divided by 2, which would be 0.5 plus 0.45. So that's going to be 0.95, 95 100ths there. So to find the area of this box, how did you get that, Miss Brother? How did you get 0.95? Well, you take the actual height here, 1.9, and you're going to divide that by 2, and that's 0.95. So then the area, again, is just the base times the height, which in this case the base is 6, and the height is 0.95. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. And that would just be 6 minus 0.3. I think. Yeah, and so you should get 5.7 when you calculate this one. All right, that was like piece of cake, so easy, but let's try a couple more and just see like how these different pictures look. So we're going to scroll up here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Edit onto. All right, so now we're going to look at some of these shapes. Some of these are very similar, but there's a couple that have some slight differences, and we'll get into those right now. So the first thing I notice is that here it's like I have a tilted rectangle, and this is a parallelogram. Parallelograms are the same as a box, but you don't have to do half the height. It's just, hey, the base is 1.5 and the height is 0.9. Piece of cake. That's it. I mean, that's all that you're really looking at. And I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that if I were to calculate that, area equals 1.5 times 0.9. That should be 50 minus 15 is going to be 0.35, 535. 435? Not 100% sure on that. Approximately. Check it with a calculator and you'd be able to get it. Actually, we can just check it here. So 9 times 15. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 4 is 135. So it was just 135. There we go. So 1.35 or 1 and 35 100ths. Oh, area of a box, piece of cake, just base times height, 10.6. 10.6 times 11.3. Piece of cake. All right, number 7. Number 7. Okay, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 here. And the question we have going on is, how do we know what the area of this is? Well, we have 3 numbers, and I know that it turns into a rectangle. It's going to cut this in half and turn it into a rectangle. How do I know it's going to cut this line in half? Or it could cut the other one in half, actually. There's 2 different ways to do this. We'll show both. This would be half of 3, which is 3 halves, or 1.5 and 4. The other way we could have done it, because these are so simple here, is we could have cut this height in half and drawn this type of box and flipped that up into there, or flipped this down into here. So we're cutting off a piece of the triangle and transforming it into another part. Either way, because this 4 would turn into a 2 when we go here. Either way, you're going to have the area equals either 3 times 2, which is 6, or over here you're going to have the area equals half of 3 times 4, which is 1.5 times 4, or 2 times 3, or either way, it winds up being 6. Area is 6 both ways. Okay, now let's do one more here for this kind of section. I see that I have an area, which that's cool, but the triangle's kind of different because the perpendicular piece is right there. So that tells me that this is like my base or height. So this is my height here. Let's call that 5.1. That means the base has to be the piece that's perpendicular to it. So there's my base. So I'm going to color in those 2 lines just so I know which one goes with which. So in other words, that tells me that this 7 and this 6 I don't really need. Not for area, because for area, all you need is a base and a height. And that's it. You don't need anything else. But we got to figure out what kind of box does that look like. Well, let's use some straight lines here. I got to shrink this down to half. So I'm going to cut that in half, kind of like this. There we go. So now I have this box. Let's color it in with red, sure. So that box there is equal to the area. And how do I know that? Well, here's what's happening. And it's not, perfect. It's pretty rough here. But this triangle there is going to pop down into that corner, and this triangle here is going to pop down into that corner. What that tells me, just based on looking at it, is that I'm definitely rough on my drawing. It should have been a little bit taller. A shot caller. So there we go. We have the base 8 and the height 5.1. So this is going to be 8, but it's not 5.1. It's 5.1 divided by 2. It's split in half. So that'd be about 2.55. 2.55. So the height divided by 2 is 2.55. So there we go. It's a half box. 8 times 2.55. And let's see, what would that actually become? Do some hand calculation here. You can just do it with a calculator if you need to. 8 times 5 is 40. So this is 44. 8 times 2 is 16 plus 4. That's 20. 40. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So that's where I'm going to wrap this first video. We're going to pick up the next one with the next type of questions.